Isiah Thomas. Is he telling the truth about Michael Jordan or is he hating? You be the judge. Cole Sports presents on the Daily. Well, VIP, welcome to the channel. Cole Johnson's here, as always, on the Daily. It's on tap, presented by Cole Sports. It is Thursday, and you know how we get down. We get down like this. Normally, we would have a sports memory on this date in history. Like, for example, November 19th, 2004, the Malice at the Palace in Auburn Hills took place to the recording of this date 16 years ago. But I'm not going to talk about that today because you heard I'm going to talk about a Piston way back when. Yeah. Well, and the reason why the former Pistons point guard, one of the 50 greatest players of all time, Basketball Hall of Famer Isiah Thomas, was on Club Shay Shay, and he had some interesting things to say. He always does in the more than actually 40 years that he's been in the spotlight. He has never been short of commentary or controversy. Well, he offered a slice of both on his appearance on Club Shay Shay. And he talked about the competition with him and his Pistons club that he led in the 80s. And I'll let you check it out. This is what he had to say.
Who would you say are the 5 toughest players that you've had to face?
Again, and you can just go by the winning records, right?
Right.
Magic, Kareem,
Okay.
Bird, Dr. J, and then I would say Jordan. Your genetic gifts, I'm going to eliminate all of that. And now we're going to play basketball, and it's going to be about our mental stamina, because I can't jump higher than some. I can't out height some. I can't outweight some, but I can outthink a lot.
Right.
Those thoughts are really interesting hearing that from Isiah. And can I say that he was faulty or at fault or wrong in that assessment? No, he was actually correct. I mean, I can understand in terms of when he got into the league in 1981, he had to deal with the 76ers in the early 80s. His main competition was the Celtics in the mid 80s. And then in the late 80s, his main competition was the Lakers. So you had this team in Chicago and the Bulls, and they were struggling. They were horrible, actually, before Jordan got into town in 1984. Then they were the little engine that could the rest of that decade. And they built and built and built and built to the point that at the end of that decade, they actually were the second best team in the league. The problem was the best team in the league was in the same division as they were. And you have to understand, I mean, the Pistons looked at the Bulls at the time as like their little brother. And you know how in relationships, how a big brother regards a little brother. And yeah, get out of here. And that basically was the mentality that Isiah had when it came to the Bulls and Jordan. Now, was Jordan mealy-mouthed in the whole time in the build-up up till the time they actually conquered him in 1991? No. In fact, he still averaged 30 and 6 and 5 on a nightly basis, even against the Pistons. Now, the Pistons gave him the most trouble, but he still got off. But you have to understand, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scale of things, the Pistons' main competition were the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Lakers before they end up getting their first ring. And, well, I will let Isiah expand further on that.
So you'd have to rank the, Lakers Celtics arguably 1 or 2,
Okay.
1A, 1B, depending on, do you like vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream? But it's still ice cream,
Right, correct.
And in Philly, that period of time with Moses and Dr. J, in the 80s, you got to give them their respect too.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would probably be, in the 80s, we would be somewhere in there as a basketball team. Now, talent-wise, the Lakers, the Celtics, the 76ers, we could not compete with their talent.
Mm-hmm.
But as a basketball team, as a unit, I would venture to say that our basketball team as a unit was just as good as their teams.
So as you see, the focus for Isiah was the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Lakers. The Bulls, they were on the come up, but they weren't quite there yet. So a lot of people were saying, well, wait a minute, whoa, wait a minute. The Bulls were tough to the Pistons too. Not necessarily true from the standpoint of this. Now, in the 80s, actually, I'll even extend it to 1990. After the 1990 season, up until the 1990 season, when the Bulls matched up with the Pistons, from the time Jordan was drafted by the Bulls, the Pistons had a 21-9 record against them. Now, of course, later on, after 1991's Eastern Conference Finals, Jordan and the Bulls didn't lose to Zeke and the Pistons even after Zeke retired. So you can obviously understand and ascertain that the Bulls actually had their revenge, so to speak, and the Pistons were aging. Now, that is true to a degree. However, there is only a 1 year, 10-month age difference between Isiah and Jordan. I mean, Jordan was born in February of 1963. Isiah was born on the last day in April 1961. So the age difference is not broad. It's not like it's a 5 or 6 year age difference, much like how it is between Magic and Jordan. Magic was born in August of 59. I already told you when Jordan was born. And of course, with Bird, it was even greater because Bird was born December of 56. And that's almost a 7 year age difference between him and Jordan. So Isiah and Jordan, they were not that far apart in age. And the Bulls and the Pistons were not that far apart in their prominence either, and their rise to prominence as well, because the Pistons, their time started in 1987. They got to the finals in 1988, and they won it in 1989. Well, the Bulls were on their heels, and 1989 they got to the Eastern Conference Finals. In 1990 they also got to the Eastern Conference Finals. They met their fate at the hands of the Pistons. They knocked them off each year. And then in 91, the Bulls got the Pistons up on out of there. So I understand how people would say, well, wait a minute. Jordan ended up getting 6 rings. Isiah only got 2. Well, in Isiah's time as a Piston, yes, Jordan still ended up having more rings than Isiah when they played, because Isiah still finished with 2. And by the time he retired in the last game in, I think it was mid-April of 1994, Jordan already had 3 and was retired actually for 6 months before Isiah's retirement. So yeah, I could say that with all certainty, yeah, Isiah is telling the truth. I mean, the Bulls were dominated by the Pistons throughout the 80s, and Jordan was gotten the better of by the Pistons, many different Pistons, not necessarily one in particular. But I want to go back to the toughest players he played, and he mentioned Kareem and Magic and Bird and Dr. J, and he mentioned Jordan in the sort of the, okay, after them, it's him. I want to show you a clip from when he appeared on Arsenio Hall back in 1990. I'm talking about Isiah Thomas. And this is what he had to say about Michael Jordan back then.
In terms of his quickness, his strength, his jumping ability, his touch, and also his knowledge and understanding for the game. He by far, is the best I've ever seen. And Irvin's my boy, but, Air. Yeah. It's something else. Yeah. He real sweet. Yeah. I mean, the dude, you see what he be doing? Yeah. And it ain't like we in high school.
So you can hear that Isiah was, well, you could probably say sipping the Kool-Aid, so to speak, but he was extremely complimentary of Jordan being the best player he's ever seen. However, as we have heard recently, his greatest plays he's ever seen have been either Dr. J or Oscar Robertson or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I think most often that has been his go-to, Kareem. Quite different from the video I just showed you when he was on Arsenio back in 1990. So was Isiah being truthful? Yes. But you got to understand, sometimes you could be truthful and you could still be utterly bitter. Now, let me remind you, VIP. After Jordan won his first championship, the Dream Team was picked. Dream Team being the 1992 men's basketball team. The first time that the NBA allowed their players to go play in the Olympics. That team was being drafted to field a U.S. team in Barcelona. Well, it was famously commented that Jordan said, it's either Isiah or me. But it was more along the lines of Magic saying, well, Isiah has to go. Isiah can't be on this team. And that has been confirmed by John Sally. Now, the truth is that, yes, the Pistons dominated the Bulls. Isiah did not dominate Jordan. But the Pistons dominated the Bulls in the 1980s, and they dominated them in 1990, and it was a little closer. But starting in 1991, the tables turned, and the Bulls started to dominate them. So, while I agree with Isiah and I get the zest and zeal, because sometimes he comes off with the energy of you cannot forget us, and he still has that Napoleonic complex, that little man complex of you will not forget me. He's still in that rush to not be forgotten and not to have his team be forgotten, and I really can't fault or hate him for that. However, if he's going to be truthful, he has to be truthful all the way, and that is he has to say, you know what, when it was time for our heir apparents to become the heirs, they snatched the crown from us, and we were not so forthcoming with giving them the crown. In fact, we were sore losers in usurping the crown to them. Isiah has never said that, and as proud as he is, I don't think he ever will. And that to me is the biggest shame of it all, even though he is telling the truth. Now, if you want this shirt that you see right before you, the details will be in the description box below. And if you are saying, well, wait a minute, there's some holes in Isiah Thomas's explanation of the truth as to who was tougher in his era, or you agree with what I'm saying, that Isiah is telling the truth, but it's tinged with a lot of bitterness. Either way, like this video. And I want to hear what you have to say, VIP. Your comments are golden to me. Thank you for your comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel for any and all content that emanates from here. Well, thank you so much, VIP. I love you. I appreciate your love. Keep the love coming. This is Cole Johnson, reminding you this has been yet another installment of Cole Sports on the visual and on the daily.